Okay, now I also want to ask you about the current situation of Afghan refugees. The Pakistani government is sending over 1.7 million refugees to Afghanistan. Now, please take us through the latest updates there.
Well, forcibly, Pakistan has managed to send more than 100,000 Afghan refugees to inside Afghanistan. Pakistan's this decision is very controversial because it is implementing the forceful expulsion of Afghan refugee at a time when there is cold weather. That means basically pushing them to live in a very tough, hard, cold conditions. In Afghanistan is known for hostile weather conditions. So I think this is frankly speaking, is a controversial decision. The government could have delayed it, and government could have done it in a more appropriate manner. Pakistan has been hosting for Afghan refugees more than 3 to 4 million over the period of time. Maybe there are 3 million in total. I think in a manner with which now the military general are basically pushing them to Afghanistan, that is inappropriate. That has caused resentment in Pakistan's northwestern province, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where Afghan refugees, the Afghans and the Pashtuns, they belong to the same ethnic background. They belong to the same religious, and they belong to the same sect of Islam. So it is a kind of a homogeneous population. You cannot make distinction that Afghan refugees are Pashtun of Pakistan or they are Afghan. So they were completely synced in Pakistani society, and particularly in the bordering region with Afghanistan. So at this particular point of time, they are being sent forcibly there. I think this has drawn a lot of condemnation from the international groups. And more importantly, I think there is a deep political issues because of which they are being sent to Afghanistan, and that is that Pakistan has been blaming Afghan government that they are sheltering militant groups which have over the period of time attacked Pakistan's security forces. Partly it is true, but partly it is exaggerated, because most of the terrorist attacks which have happened during last couple of months, their tentacles are very much inside Pakistan. They are sleeper cells. So Pakistani intelligence network, they have not been able to cope with those sleeper cells, and they have found it convenient to blame onto the Afghan government. The real problem lies deep inside Pakistan, and similarly, Pakistani police and other security forces have been blaming Afghan refugees that they were involved in terrorism, they are involved in social crimes. Again, there is no data to suggest that about their involvement at that alarming level. 4 or 5 years back, there was, I think 6 years back perhaps, there was some data collection in Pakistan's northwestern province, which shows that their involvement was around about 1% in the social crime. And similarly, in the past, the terrorist act where Afghan refugees were blamed, mostly, I think, again, that was because of the political reasons. Pakistan at that particular point of time was supporting Afghan Taliban. Pakistan had provided them discreetly shelters inside Pakistan. So whenever Americans used to blame Pakistan or the then Afghan government was blaming Pakistan. So Pakistan, as a convenient justification, was blaming Afghan refugees. So there is a politics which is ironically determining the forceful expulsion of Afghan refugees. It is a controversial decision, and in the long run, I think it would cost Pakistan, because it is being seen with a very negative shade in Kabul.
Okay. Now, lastly, the Taliban government in Afghanistan has said that it will not be able to handle the influx of refugees due to the economy and the recent earthquake and the lack of funds to sustain families. What sort of a situation can these refugees face when they return back to their homeland?
Well, obviously, the bigger hostility that these Afghan refugees would face is going to be cold weather conditions. They can die in the cold weather conditions. They would be homeless there. They migrated from Afghanistan 40 years ago when the then Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan. So their homes obviously would have been destroyed by the Soviets. Or leftover of their homes would have been destroyed by the American bombing, or they would have been taken over by other hostile elements in Afghan society. So while going there inside Afghanistan means that they won't be homes to, they won't have the shelters. So still, this is going to be the biggest problem. Afghan government is a nascent government. They are trying to establish its political order, though they have largely established. But obviously, they don't have the money. All of a sudden, how would they provide shelters to 1.7 million Afghan refugees? So that is a bigger challenge for the Afghan government. My understanding is, going by the track record that we have seen, the kind of administration that Afghan Taliban has put in place, they would be able to manage it. But obviously, the bigger challenge for these Afghan refugees is going to be hostile weather conditions. And I also foresee that many of the Afghan refugees would return to Pakistan because there is a long, porous, zigzag border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So infiltrating, sneaking in, across the border is quite convenient. So they will be returning to Pakistan, and nobody would be knowing that these are the Afghans or the Pashtun, because these people are very much synced in Pakistani society. Within the society, there is no hostility towards them. It is a government's decision, government's propaganda, however, has triggered some kind of hostility within certain segments of the society. But by and large, the Afghan refugees were the biggest source of strength of getting a cheap labor when it comes to the construction business in Pakistan. Pakistan's construction business is going to be hit hard because it is going to become more costlier. Reason being is that there won't be manpower now available for the contractors. They would not be getting this labor power. It is a very hard job to do, and in coming weeks and months, I think it will also have a negative impact on Pakistan's economy.
Okay, Javed, thank you so much for joining us on the program. We always appreciate your insight.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geo-strategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geo-strategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.